Yeah, well, let's start that again. Welcome back to the No Stay Project here, live from the fortified compound in Mesa, Arizona. Just a little technical glitch there, but hey, no one's on yet anyway, so it's not a big deal. So hopefully people will start filing in there quickly. And I appreciate everyone tuning in today. It's December 21st, 2019. One of the last shows of the year, which has been, at least on a personal side, it's been just a god awful year for me. Just absolute. So I am glad to see 2019 going, but at least we've got something good. That one of the elites is having some accountability. Not that there's going to be prison time like a regular person, but we get to end the year with only the third United States president ever being impeached. And hey, maybe things will change. Maybe we'll have another historic. Maybe he'll actually be removed. But hey, you can only hope. They should be removing Pence at the same time, because this guy is a different kind of horror show. But he's an articulate con man. So, yeah, aloha, mahalo to everybody. If you want to join me here on the big show, it's 218-632-9399, 218-632-9399. The passcode is 2020 with the pound sign. You can also get me on Skype. If you instant message me first, it is Frank Rizzo 3. That's Frank Rizzo 3. I don't know, though, if I could do Discord at the same time. I think what I need to do is I need to finally get on board and do a Discord server just for the show like I did with the Skype chat. And so maybe the Discord will work out better where we won't have the trolls. I can tell you a particular one that I've spoken about, unfortunately, a lot this past week is not somebody that I would want on my own personal server for the show. This is not to say dissent is not welcome, because it always is, but at least try to maintain some kind of professionalism and treat, the basic principle of treating others the way you want to be treated. If you can't do that, that's not really not something I want to address. I've no problem addressing arguments and discussing that, but condescending, arrogant, and I get enough of that from dealing with these bureaucrats, off during the regular, part of the week. I don't need to also do that, especially when I've done it multiple times already. So, but let me get the ugliness out of the way. I did put out a short 2-minute video to demonstrate the dishonesty of someone like Juan Galt. I mean, the longer video, which I have 40 minutes of it. I just did the 2 minutes, but I just wanted to bring that particular part out to show that right off the bat, the man is dishonest. He also, and then I'm going to do, so I'm going to have the full video, but I'm also doing a shorter video that only be a couple minutes long also. So that you can, because he accuses me, it's kind of that Trumpism that you project what you're doing. If you're a dishonest crook, then you project that onto your victim, and that's what your victims are. So he accuses me of not answering any of his questions, there's video of that. And this is a very common dishonest tactic that lawyers have. It's just distract. So I will be posting those 2 videos. So again, it's going to be about 4 or 5 minutes long with just me answering the questions. Okay. So all the other stuff is going to be taken out. So just to prove that when he claims that I don't answer his questions, I've got all the proof right there in the video that I did. Now I'm at a point, I don't give a damn how they're spun. I'm not interested in his responses. I don't give a damn about somebody trolling me on YouTube anymore. I'm not going to respond. And I would definitely make the suggestion to everybody, because I don't want to actually just outright block people. But do me a favor so that we can stay focused on the main points of the show. Do not feed the trolls. We already know the arguments. We already know the claims. You already know that they think I'm retarded. We already know all that. So if everyone could do me a favor, don't respond to this particular critic / troll that we get most of the time. Just don't respond. I am not going to be responding to anything that they have to offer anymore. I can't just keep repeating myself. So maybe you guys can do that, show some love, and not respond to any of the comments that they make, and maybe, just maybe, they'll just move on because we're not covering any new ground. So look for that video. Maybe I'll get the shorter video done today, and I'll get that posted. But I will have the entire 40-minute unedited video. And I will say, at least a disclaimer here, the only edit I am doing to the audio is that I am taking the good audio that I did from Audacity and I synced it up to my good camera. So that's the only, so I'm not actually editing the content. So you're going to get every single word that unedited that transpired. And if somebody reports to me that I'm being accused of actually manipulating the audio in any way possible to try to make it look like Juan Galt is not a dishonest, condescending lawyer, then I took the precaution, knowing that that may happen. I took the precaution of also doing a private stream, just like I'm doing now, but private. So that is totally unedited. And I don't even, I know you can edit somewhat videos. It'll be a completely unedited stream, so people can make up their own minds. Of course, that would require people listening to all 40 minutes of it again. And wow, I got to tell you, I don't know if I can, I don't think I can handle that again. It was enough just to sit there and listen to this guy drone on and on and on. But hopefully we don't have to do that anymore. James is saying, I prefer to hear success stories separate from the hour-long videos. I do have success stories that are coming. I have them, some of the material I haven't actually gotten yet, though. So it's not like I won't do a video on a success story if I don't have the documented proof. So, because this way, there's a lot less for anybody who's going to, just try to discredit the work. There's a lot less there for them. So when they do come out, James, to discredit the work, they have to deal with the actual documented proof. And that's why they'll still lie, saying, well, Marc hasn't had any success in court because, well, but here's a copy of the motion that was granted. Oh, that doesn't count. That the judge was clearly pissed off at the prosecutor. Really? But he still had success in court. Yeah, but it's not because of the merits. But that's what it says. Yeah, but I know better. I know better. Marc has never had any success. But for those who are new and want to know if there has been success, and yes, I am, damn it, James, I'm sorry. I'm going to do my best to get those success stories in there. There's quite a bit more work that goes into doing that than, the call of shame. Which, yeah, I don't remember who did it. Somebody gave me the idea of posting the Juan Galt call as a call of shame. Hey, that's a pretty good idea. It's been damn near a year since we did a call of shame, so it's about time we get a call of shame posted. And hey, we got it with a lawyer. So, well, someone's saying, Jace, you don't need to justify your great work to help people. I don't know if it's necessarily. It shouldn't be just my word, and it's not my word. I don't want any. I post the success stories with the train wrecks so that people have a much better understanding and have more context. So when you look at I think an actual con man, these common law type people or common law lawyers, they don't give you all the context. Well, a better one I would say would be the Pete Hendrickson, where he gives you the copies of the treasury checks that people get back, but they don't show you the follow-up and how they're prosecuted after that. So that's leaving that out. So we've had a lot of success. I've had success. Other people have replicated my success, and it's there. But I will get that posted. I've it's been very rough this year. And you'll know I haven't had success stories posted since before July, and there's a big reason for that, especially since I was spending most of my time in California with some unfortunate things. So anyway, I will get to the success stories. So what I did was I tentatively titled this show, "Are Courts Fair?" And it just seems because of recent things that have come out, here lately. And we've got new people. We've got new people all the time. I wish that was representative in how many views the videos actually get. It's like I can have 500,000 subs and still get 1,000 views on the videos. So anyway, are courts fair? Are they fair? This is a pretty open-ended question. I don't like to ask open-ended questions, but hey, we're not we're just throwing it out there for discussion. So somebody's saying short answer is no. Well, no. Well, it's you have to look at the organization, and this is just me. I'm not a lawyer. I don't pretend to be a lawyer, but I've got a lot of success helping people in court. Doesn't matter the political the political jurisdiction. Doesn't matter. We've got success in United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. We've got it in England. We had, my gosh, Helen had costs awarded against the prosecution. She kicked the crap out of them so bad. So it's obvious. So you don't have to be a lawyer to effectively defend yourself in court. But lawyers are trained, people in the legal profession are trained to just accept the narrative. And so regardless of what may be said, I do understand the argument that look, I'm not even going to get into that for now. We'll see if we need to do that. Like I've said before, if we are going to make determinations on the fairness, see, my point is when we go into these so-called courts, when we're going in, my position is, and I like to look at more of the context instead of just going in a narrow view. No. I'm going to sit there. I think if we challenge, and this is not exclusive to me. Of course, people I don't like to be in the same company with, they, of course, have done it. In fact, the United States government, George Bush, and they all challenged the authority and so-called jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court in The Hague. No, it's not something that's exclusive to me. So what are you supposed to do? Well, you hold on, you get a summons or something to appear in front of The Hague. You just accept it. Well, I can't challenge the jurisdiction. I can't. That's a political question. No, you challenge the jurisdiction. Yeah, the courts are criminal, but it's not just the court. The courts are just part of a larger criminal enterprise. And so to me, we have to look at the basic nature of the organization that is conducting these so-called hearings. The idea that we have to just accept this, look, you have to accept that this is the law, and the only way to change it is through the ballot box or the bullet. We're looking at a tiny proceeding that we're not thinking that this is going to change the entire system. No one is going to think that just because we go into court, we're going to change anything socially or politically. But I think it's necessary if we're going to determine whether these actions are fair or are they consistent with traditional notions of fair play and substantial justice. Not just due process. Are they consistent with traditional notions of fair play and substantial justice? That to do that, we cannot just accept the story that they're given to us. We have to be skeptics. We have to be rational. Why should I have to accept that because now you're arguing philosophy? No. We're trying to determine whether this process, and it does, I don't think it's relevant how you paint it. I'm not going to fall into, and I don't think we should fall into this trap, this patriot type thing. Well, it's maritime. Oh, it's common law. Oh, it's admiralty. We have a group of men and women who are putting us through a process that's advertised as supposing to be fair, and that has to be, according to their rules, consistent with not just fairness, but traditional notions of fair play and substantial justice. That's the international shoe case, if anybody wants to look that up. And so if somebody looks that up, I can give the citation on the air. International shoe. In fact, you could just do a search for fair play and substantial justice, and you'll find that same. You'll find that same. You'll find the international shoe case. The very common, very well-established principle that the act of taking jurisdiction may not offend traditional notions of fair play and substantial justice. Well, let's see. If they're going to make an assertion of jurisdiction and it's true because they say so, would that offend traditional notions of fair play and substantial justice? I believe it is. Why? Well, let's do I get to do that? See, we're talking about fundamental fairness. The rules have to apply to everybody. Now, we all know that I can't go into a traffic court and make a foundational defense claim for jurisdiction that international law does not allow. International law does not allow them to assert jurisdiction over me. Right? What do we get? What do they say? Well, what can I say? Well, you can't defend that. If you have a problem with my claim, take it up with the legislature. Take it up with the United Nations. It's political. You cannot challenge. You have to accept it. If you don't accept that my assertion, my legal claim, which I have no evidence of, if you can't accept that, then too bad. Too friggin' bad, because it's political. If you challenge it, you can't challenge it here in this court. And the idea that judges are not required to make determinations on what law applies in the court. No, the federal courts get charged with that all the time. That's what the whole thing with Erie Railroad versus Tompkins. What law is going to apply? So we have to look at two things. Is it a legitimate or criminal organization? And then are the proceedings fair? And I've said it 100 times. I see absolutely no rational reason why we should try to examine the fairness of those proceedings on the rules promulgated by that organization only. You're stuck with the rules, and if you don't like it, vote them out. Vote them out. Pick up a gun, shoot them. You got two choices, ballot or the bullet. Well, I think that's a false choice. And before somebody starts saying, well, you can't really inject logic and reason in legal or political, I don't agree with that. The idea that we're going to limit our defense, which comes down to that these proceedings are fundamentally unfair, and we're only going to use their rules. Now, I do use their rules to show that even by their rules, because some of them are consistent with traditional notions of fair play and substantial justice. Some of them are. Due process, there's some really good due process principles, such as the prosecution has to meet their burden beyond a reasonable doubt in a criminal proceeding. That's great. Another one is that the witnesses have to have personal knowledge of the matters they're testifying to. But it defies logic to me that you would look at an organization's actions and try to make a determination of whether they are fair based on only their rules. So you're going to tell. So do we judge the treatment of people in Hong Kong and China? Are we going to actually judge that based just on Chinese law? To me, it is just it smacks of being a shill. That your whole job is, I don't give a damn about right and wrong. I just care about making the system look good. There's just no rational reason to say that you have to limit your examination, your analysis is limited to just the organization's rules themselves. That to me is just crazy. Maybe if I had a vested interest in the legitimacy of the system because that's how I earned my money, well then yeah, okay, I could see that I could see that explaining such, obvious bias. But to try to piss on my work or try to discourage you or somebody else from looking into a more effective way to defend themselves, no. It doesn't wash. You have to be able to convince people that you judge an organization's actions strictly by the rules of the organization. No. Because by that token, we can't judge. We can only judge the actions of the Saudi Arabian government under their law. And if you don't like the law, you can't judge it. You have to either vote them out or shoot them out. But thankfully, there's only a few people. Why I'm even talking about this now is it's just based on the stupid arguments of only a handful of people. But I think it's important to understand this, and that this is the basis of why we're doing this. So, what standards are we going to use? I think basic principles of right and wrong. I think based on rational, secular ethics is how we judge it, which I've spoken before is not arbitrary. It's not different from all other people, because what person, at least in their right mind, wants themselves to be hurt? And that, to be consistent, to be logically consistent, if I don't want to be hurt, I don't want to be hurt. That's the starting point. My own self-preservation. Then to be consistent, I can't go against your self-interest. You're right. You're wanting to stay alive and you wanting to have peace and you wanting to be left alone. I have to be consistent with that. So what's not consistent with that is wrong. And that is the basis of any rational moral principles. That to me is a pretty good gauge. And we don't need a college degree, and we absolutely don't need to be court reporters. We don't need to be lawyers. We understand this by the time we're 4 or 5 years old, because we don't want to. We instinctively, maybe that's the wrong word, but we seek our own peace, our own self-preservation. We don't want to get hurt. It hurts. We don't like it. So, to be consistent logically, which is still in our self-interest too. Because if we're seeking to hurt other people, it's right. It's always right for them to defend themselves. We put our own lives in jeopardy. So again, it's starting from a moral principle from rational secular ethics in that self-preservation. It comes from this. Do I want that done to me? Okay. So the idea, and that's pretty objective. So that's what we're going to use to gauge the fairness of these people. Is it a legitimate moral organization? Okay, if I was to force strangers in my community to give me money, even under the guise that I was going to do good things for them, would I be a criminal? Is that wrong? Is it morally and ethically wrong? Yeah. Of course, that's our barometer. That's our measuring stick. I'm not pulling it out of thin air. It's not my moral code. It's not my moral philosophy. So if it's wrong for me to do it, if it's wrong for me to get 10 people in my neighborhood to then force the rest of the community, it's always wrong. So when we're talking about government, their support is that they are forcing people in the community, and they are forcing people in the community to support them. And they have a force continuum in place to make sure they get that support. That is criminal. That is wrong. And it's always wrong. It doesn't matter if it's the United States, it's Canada, or China, or Norway. It's wrong. If it's wrong for me, if it's wrong for 10 people, if it's wrong for 100 people, it's wrong. So we can establish clearly that what is co-government, just men and women, these are the facts, just the facts, ma'am. They are men and women forcing the community to give them money. Criminal. Now, can you have fair proceedings from a criminal organization? That's a big question. So what they're trying to do, or what people may have you to believe, is that even though they're a criminal organization, if you want their laws do apply and you can't challenge them, and if you want to change that their laws apply to you, you have to either kill them or vote them out and change the policy. Well, what this does is it misses the fact that when we are challenged in court or when we're attacked and they're making these accusations, they are making certain claims. Now, it's easy for the con man to just paint with no. This is not a legal claim. It's political. Because the laws are passed by the political branch, and you can only change that by voting them out or killing them. False choice. You say, you just lie and you say, well, you got two choices here. You want me to break your arm, you want me to break your leg. Well, how about you don't break anything at all, jackass? How about that? See, you always have to be weary and skeptical if somebody says that there's only two choices. At least when I say that the judge has only two choices, I explain myself. I don't just throw it out there. The judge has only two choices. It's his own opinion or it's the prosecution's evidence. But that's literally all it can be. But you should still be skeptical of anybody who is making a claim that there's only two choices, especially when you're talking about court or it's something, dealing with government. You only have two choices. No. Most times in life, there are more than two choices. And it's those who want to keep that blinder on. They've got an agenda. It's not a matter of let's look at all the context. It's not a matter of let's look at all the facts. Let's get as much context as possible and see what the facts tell us. No, it's screw this. This is the narrative. I went to school and that's what they taught me. And screw everybody else, right? Oh, well, you haven't been to law school, so you can't possibly know. Oh, I can't determine that they're men and women forcing us to pay them? I can't determine that on my own? Well, if you think that they're illegitimate and immoral, then that's philosophical, and you can't discuss that. I disagree. Even just labeling something philosophy does not negate the argument and does not negate the effectiveness of it. Especially when we use this argument to point out that the claims that they are actually making against us in court, and don't doubt for a moment, at least after listening to all the calls of shame that I have, you cannot doubt that their claim is, if you're in Arizona, the Constitution applies. That's the basis of their jurisdiction. They always say that. That's the claim that they're making. No matter how you couch that, no matter how you want to paint that particular claim, I don't care if you say it's philosophy. I don't care if you say it's political. I don't care if you say it's legal. And I don't care if you say it's magical. If the claim is being made against us in court, guess what? Fundamental fairness and traditional notions of fair play and substantial justice and due process mandate you get to challenge it. And the reason why irrefutable presumptions and claims are considered violations of due process is because due process at a very bare minimum requires notice and opportunity to be heard. So for them to make a claim and turn around and say, well, you can't challenge that, it's political, you have to take it up with the legislature, for them to make that challenge and rest their entire claim on it, and you can't challenge it, is unfair. The notion that, well, they're not actually relying on the Constitution, Mark. All they're doing is they're going based on the law. The Constitution is the law. And they're not doing it just based on a statute. And we're not talking just about the court's jurisdiction here, guys. This is not simply we're challenging the jurisdiction of the court. We are challenging the jurisdiction of the executive branch that is making the accusation also. And never doubt for a second, you can verify this for yourself. For them to consider that we are under their jurisdiction, they don't have to accuse you of a crime. They don't have to cite a particular statute that they think you're violating. They think you're subject to all of their laws. All of them. So it is always better for us, whether you're being attacked or not, to get more facts, get more context. So if you limit the context, you're going to not have a valid conclusion. And that is going to be, that'll put you in a pretty bad spot. So we want to look at more of the context. So if they are going to be making a claim against us, and that claim is, and you could just ask them, they'll tell you. When we get the cop on the stand, they don't say, well, I didn't do. No, they readily admit. They believe that if I'm physically in Arizona, then their constitution and laws apply, and that gives them jurisdiction. They admit it on the stand every time. That is the claim that they're making. So it's really this simple. Whatever claim they are making, they have to prove. You don't need law school. No, guys, we don't need to go to law school to know that. But the problem comes in when you attack the foundation, the claim that they are literally, they're going to say it and they're going to put it in their paperwork. They'll tell you. They're not hiding it. So the idea then, if they're making this claim and the cop is testifying to that, and then somehow if you ask him for the facts that his prior statement was based on, his claim was based on, that you can't challenge that? So let's examine this for a second. This is something that was avoided in the discussion. It's not necessarily always avoided when I discuss and have my call changed when I'm discussing with a bureaucrat who's actually making a claim. They will tell you that the statute is not relevant if the Constitution is not applicable. Other people want to argue that all they're doing is they're looking to see if the statute says it applies to you. You know, a driver has to have a driver's license, something like that. Or a driver has to, ID himself. They think that that's the only thing that they're looking at. But it's not. I had the calls to prove that wrong. That is not. They are admitting these things. We have the testimony from them. And like I mentioned, the goal, maybe he can give a call. Maybe him and his court reporter, maybe they can call all these people that I've spoken to and say, dude, you are doing it wrong. I've been to law school. I'm a court reporter. I've been a court reporter for 62 years. I know better. You are not allowed to look beyond the law. You can only look to the statute. You cannot look at the Constitution. You can't do it. It doesn't matter that it's in their paperwork. So here's another, not just traffic court. If you look at IRS documents or you look at franchise tax board taxing stuff, they have, let's say like the IRS will say that their jurisdiction comes from the 16th Amendment. They will tell you straight out that their jurisdiction is based on the Constitution. They'll tell you that. That doesn't matter to these people. So what's important here, and this is why I always go through the clarification, you have to know what the actual claim is first. That's why we ask them. They tell me in plain English, their claim is, if you're physically in Arizona, the laws apply. That's their claim. That's what gives them personal jurisdiction allegedly over you. It doesn't matter if you're in court. You don't have to actually be in court for them to assert the jurisdiction. So remember, there's two claims of jurisdiction here. Did the police officer have evidence proving jurisdiction to stop you? And have they provided evidence of jurisdiction to the court? I've been talking about that, the two aspects of jurisdiction in a court case since 2003. Gosh, has it been that long? So are courts fair? Can they be fair? Well, I don't think they can be fair. I think they can do the right thing in that flies in the face of how criminal the enterprise is. Sure. They still, a lot of them are idealists. They want to make it look like they're administering justice. Some of them are true believers, and they stick to some of the rules, which is why we get things tossed out. And I help people get things tossed out all the time. And it's not just because the cop didn't show up. That's just ridiculous. But markstevens.net/success stories. Look at the evidence for yourself. Don't take my word for it. I'm just some schmuck from Long Island in an Iron Maiden shirt. So what the hell do I know? But I know the evidence speaks for itself. So I don't think that they could be fair. So this is why when we go in, I'm not going in and explicitly challenging the legitimacy of government. No, what I'm doing is exploiting the fatal flaw in their argument because they are a criminal organization. But it doesn't, I don't need, and I don't suggest that we go in and say that they're criminals. That's not going to get us anywhere. But we're going to exploit that. Why can we argue that the prosecution lacks evidence to support their foundational claim of jurisdiction, personal and subject matter? How can we do that? Because they are a criminal organization. Well, you can't argue philosophy. I'm not doing that. I'm using the facts, the type of organization they are, to exploit a fatal flaw in their argument. And it doesn't mean it's going to be successful every time. No, we're going to have train wrecks where they just ignore it. Again, no argument, no matter how solid it is, no argument wins every time in court. And anyone who tells you that is lying to you. Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, man, those are fantastic arguments to make. Fifth Amendment says, damn it, you got to be able to cross-examine the witness, right? You got to be able to confront the witness against you and have an effective cross-examination. And you can argue you would deny that. You can have the facts. Well, I asked 2 questions and they threw me out. I asked 2 relevant questions and the judge, and you still lose. It doesn't mean that the Fifth Amendment's requirement for due process and confronting your witness, the witness is against you in effect, of course, it doesn't mean that that's a bad argument just because some traffic court judge or even an appellate judge refused to hear. We had an appellate court judge here say there was no right of cross-examination in civil traffic. It doesn't mean that making a confrontation clause argument is bad. You just had a judge who disagreed with you. It doesn't mean the argument is bad. The argument, you have to look at the merits of the argument given the facts. Just like saying it is a good argument if the prosecution doesn't have evidence and a competent witness to testify to a certain point, a certain element. And you can have the evidence. It doesn't mean that the judge is going to accept it. Look, they're a criminal organization. And prosecution, my gosh, the judges have been caught texting prosecutors in the middle of a trial. So, in prosecute, I don't want to get in. We don't need to get into all the established bias, but a lot of judges were former prosecutors. They don't just shed all that bias. You don't go working for 10, 15 years for the process and just all of a sudden all your biases are gone because you become a judge. I mean, look, that's childish. It doesn't really require much to demonstrate that. You don't spend your lifetime defending something and then turn around and be completely unbiased. And then you're going to bring all that crap with you. Judges allow you to make legal claims, foundational legal claims without proving it. You're going to allow the next prosecutor to do that too, because that's what you know. Even that's just the way it's done. You don't question the fairness of it. All right, we got he's been on the show before. Maybe we got a fellow Fellow Sicilian. We got Angelo from New York. Welcome back to the show.
What's going on, Marc?
Trying to get through another show without tech issues. So.
Yeah, I've been listening to the show as it's been going on and stuff. Recently had a court case back on the 3rd of December. I went into the courtroom, did what you asked, as you stated to me, asked for jurisdiction, stated that was an element that the prosecution must show before we even proceed on with anything. So the judge was, going on with the procedure. I said, objection. I said, am I allowed to ask the prosecution to answer the question? Did prosecution give jurisdiction, show jurisdiction, or whatever evidence that she has she submitted to you to show jurisdiction over the body of me? He said that was the trial issue. The first thing he said they was going to say. I said, objection. He said, right now we're not going to go no further due to the fact that you don't have a lawyer. Are you representing yourself? Would you be representing yourself, or whatever the case is? I said, I'm representing myself now. He said, well, we're going to postpone this. I said, objection. He still proceeded on. So I asked the prosecutor, I said, excuse me, are you taking the burden of the plaintiff, being that the plaintiff is not here? The judge states to me, I'm not going to allow her to answer that. I said, well, objection. I said, I think there's a conflict of interest. I said, I think you're a lawyer from the bench, and I think you're covered for the prosecution. I said, it's my right to approach my accuser. The prosecution is alleging something with no facts. It has done nothing or shown nothing as of yet. So I asked that you dismiss the case for prejudice. He was like, well, no, I'm not going to do that. I said, objection. I said, there's another conflict of interest. I asked you to recuse yourself from this case, as I have a conflict because you was my parole attorney. So he looked at me.
Whoa.
Like with the nastiest look, and was like, excuse me? I said, you was my parole attorney back in 1997, Mr. Marc Caruso. He said, honorable. I said, at that time, your name was Marc Caruso, attorney Marc Caruso. So I asked that you recuse yourself right now and set this off to be heard by another judge, please. The DA's face looked crazy. He looks at the DA, looks at me. He said, yeah, I probably did. I said, no, probably in it. You did. Could you recuse yourself? He said, well, I have no, you want me to recuse yourself? I said, immediately, please and thank you. He said, I have no choice but to recuse myself. But he was speaking to the prosecutor at the time of saying that. So I'm just looking at him. So when he did that, I just walked out the court. I was like, please, appreciate it and thank you. So I left out the court. So now I submit a motion for a case that I got pulled over with the DWI, right? The cop made an alleged statement that I was drunk, which I wasn't. He knew I wasn't. What he did was he took my phone and cut my phone off when I was trying to record. So when he did that, I said, hey, what are you doing? I gave him my license. Everything was straight. So forth and so forth. So when he went through semantics of everything, I allowed him to do what he had to do. He said, are you going to blow into it? I said, no, I'm not blowing into anything unless I'm on camera. I said, I noticed you don't have a body cam, nor are these vehicles out here, nor of them have cameras. So one of the officers said, yeah, they do have a camera. I said, oh, now you're persisting a lot of me like I'm stupid. I said, here's what you can do. You can give him my phone, and I'll record or give it to you, and you can record the proceeding, and I'll blow, do the walk, whatever you want me to do. I won't refuse of anything. I said, if you can't do that, being that you just lied to me, I'm not doing anything. You understand? I said, you can write it up how you want to, do whatever you want to. I'm done talking. Stated nothing else, okay? So the partner gets upset, arrests me, takes me in. Boom, I submit out the motions, okay? Now, when I just went to court 3 days ago, the prosecution had 30 days to answer this motion. The prosecution had actually came into the court with the motion, right? Handed me the motion. I slid back to her. I said, Your Honor, before me taking this motion, I wanted to put on a record that the prosecution had 30 days or a little longer to answer this motion, and I can't effectively defend myself with late motions and stuff like this. I want to make sure this is not going to continue to happen. And I've never heard of a prosecution giving, late motions. I said, because if it was me and I had a 10 to 15 day barrier, y'all would have dismissed this. My motion would have been kicked out immediately. So I was hoping to expect the same. He was like, well, I got to review her motion and I'll review your motion. I said, remember, you're bound by the Constitution, right? This is what you told me. I said, no fairness, I'm innocent until proven guilty, right? I said, you read my motion clearly. He said, oh, believe me, I read this motion over and over and over. I said, okay, I just wanted to make sure. I said, thank you. He said, I'll get back to you, and I left the court. But now that I'm looking at this frivolous motion this lady just sent me, I'm like, this makes no sense.
Okay, but all right, we got a lot to unpack here. You went through a lot of stuff, and there's two situations going on here. I will throw out that, it's no surprise that the judge is saying that jurisdiction is a trial issue. Now, when they said that, did you say, well, objection, are you asserting jurisdiction over me right now? You are. Okay, great.
And, yes,
oh, you did?
I asked him, he's asserting of jurisdiction. He said, no, I'm reading the motions. I said, objection. I'm asking you for yes or no, not of what you're doing. He said, I'll get back to you with the motions, and that was the end of the case, and he gave me the next court date.
Well, okay, because he also, all right, well, for everyone listening or new, when they say jurisdiction is a trial issue, they're lying to you. Obviously it has to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt there, but it still has to be proven prior to that, because if the moment the judge is asserting jurisdiction over you, which is why you're in there on an arraignment or a pretrial anyway, you're forced to be in there. The moment they say, I have jurisdiction, you must do X, Y, Z, that they have to have made a decision. Due process says that they're supposed to have made a decision that the prosecution's evidence is sufficient to show that there is jurisdiction to at least have an arraignment and set it for trial. And they're not. So that's why I go through, well, objection, are you asserting jurisdiction? And they'll say, well, yes. Well, great. Has the prosecution submitted sufficient facts to prove jurisdiction? The thing here, and I wrote it down. I'm glad I did. When they start, I get this all the time when I'm talking to a bureaucrat that's in deep trouble of not being able to support their claim. And, so they've admitted that their claim against me, if I'm physically in Arizona, the laws apply, the Constitution, the laws apply, but they get into trouble when they can't actually prove that claim is true. They can't prove the Constitution applies. And just again, if you cannot prove the Constitution applies, you cannot prove that the statute applies. So what they'll usually do is try to distract you from the issue. And the issue here that they're trying to use is they're injecting the lawyer. So for you, they're saying, well, we're going to distract this young man from his focus here and on the prosecution's evidence, and we're going to put it over here to something completely irrelevant. So what they do to me is they'll say, well, you're not even a lawyer. What in this context, we're on the phone, you jackass. In this context, why would I need to be a friggin' lawyer? It's just a dodge. Well, you're not a lawyer. And you're not a real man.
I don't think common sense has to do with anything with being a lawyer.
Yeah, as if my working to investigate a certain claim requires me to be a lawyer. Please, I'm not giving legal advice. Give me a break. So that's what I just wanted to get to. That was absolutely distraction. So you just left the court after they refused to recuse themselves?
No. Actually, the judge recused himself.
Oh, okay. I missed that part.
He recused himself. He looked at the DA. He told her, he said, I'm sorry, I got to recuse myself. I said, thank you. I appreciate y'all. You have happy holidays. And I walked right out the courtroom.
Okay, great. Okay, well, all right. Well, good. Good. Now, had that judge previously ruled on the motion to dismiss? Yes. I would resubmit it, and I would put in the beginning the reasons why it should be reconsidered is because the previous judge should have recused themselves because they were and you put in there they were my parole officer in '97, and they should have recused themselves. And the bias there and the impropriety there is pretty obvious. If he was your parole officer, he had no business making any decisions against you. Gee. Well,
okay, we'll do.
Wow. Okay,
now,
so
this new one, right? This other one that I have, which the motions I just sent you. This was the motion for lack of evidence and stuff like that, and the discovery. Okay. Now, in this discovery, in the motion that the prosecution sent back, I think she said that I didn't ask for a corpus delicti, something in that matter. So she's like, I'm not going to even respond to it. But as I'm looking in the motion, as I was going back through, I believe that was number 4 or number 5 on the front page. Please provide all, and you went through the list, you know. So I'm looking at her motion. I'm like, well, how could she say, if I'm asking, please provide all of these things, how could she state in her motion that I didn't ask for anything of a corpus electa, so she's not going to respond to it?
Well, before that, let me ask, what was the pretext for the stop? So to get back to the traffic stop, what was the pretext?
This is some funny shit. He said tailgating. He said I was tailgating, right? And when the guy pulled me over, the funniest shit, I just wrote my window down and I gave him my license. I was able to get my license and registration out the fucking car before he even got to me, out my pocket before he even got to me. This was the funniest shit. So I'm looking at him. He's like, hey, dude, why you just didn't go around when you seen the guy break? I said, hey, dude, here's my license and registration, and I own this vehicle. You ain't gonna tell me how to drive my vehicle. If I'm at the speed limit and if somebody stops before me, I am to stop so I don't crash them. Take my license and registration, do what the hell you gotta do. Please and thank you. So I gives him the license and registration. He comes back. He said, hey, dude, you got a warrant. I said, I ain't got no fucking warrants.
Whoa, so okay. Let's. My virgin is over here, Angelo.
So he said, you got a warrant. I said, dude, I ain't got no warrant. So he says, I said, what's the warrant for? He says, criminal mischief. I just looked at him and laughed. I said, okay. I said, well, you might as well take me in so they could take me to do whatever with the criminal mischief so I could bail out, dude. That's what they talk about. So he says, hey, you been drinking? You been smoking? I said, no. He said, you had a private DWI? I said, you got a machine in there that tells you all about me, right? You got my ID, right? Stop asking me fucking questions so you don't make no assumptions or whatever the case may be. He's like, do you mind blowing? I said, yes, I do.
But, Angelo.
He said, do you mind taking it? Huh?
You're talking too much to this cop. I always recommend, and anybody, no, everybody knows. Well, not everybody knows, but anybody who knows the system well, you keep your mouth shut when you're talking to a cop on a traffic stop. When he asks you a question, you say, on advice of counsel, I am not answering any questions. End of discussion. And you keep your mouth shut. We all got to keep that in mind. So that's for you and everybody listening. Here's some sound legal advice, right? Let's blow the minds of all the attorneys listening. Here's some sound legal advice for everybody out there. If you are stopped by a cop, especially on a traffic stop, you don't say anything other on advice. You identify yourself so you don't go to jail or get shot, and you say, on advice of counsel, I am not answering any questions. And you keep your mouth shut for the rest of the time. You don't say another word until you're gone. So,
right. So proceeding on to that, I goes to the court. I submit the motions. I waited to 30 days. Like I said, the DA gave me the motion back just a couple of days ago. I was reading over the motions. Everything she stated in the motions was applicable to their code. Nothing of what I stated, and being that the fact, because I was basically physically in upstate New York, that gives them jurisdiction. Right. So I just looked at this shit like, this lady is crazy. It answers nothing of the motion. It's like it goes all around about, but answering a simple question. Did you take the cookie from the cookie jar? Yes or no?
Yeah. Well, well, what they're technically doing is they're just repeating the argument. So their argument, they claim, we already know if I'm physically in New York, you think your Constitution, a written instrument, applies. Yeah, we know that. What facts actually prove that that's true? That's their conclusion. That's the allegation. We just want the facts to prove it's true.
Right, which they have given nothing other than code and section of the penal code law or the traffic code law or whatever other gibberish they can come up with.
Right, and just for, because there's an inevitable comment. Some will say, a few critics will say, well, that's all they have to give you. Like, no. The claim is that if I'm physically in New York, the Constitution applies. Now, every agent I've done this to, pretty much all of them when I ask them for evidence proving that claim is true, and they always go to the code if they answer directly, if they're instead of if they're honest, well, hell, I don't know. If they answer with a statute, I always get them to reverse themselves by saying, "Are you sure that's true?" So your position is that the code, the statute, is evidence proving your Constitution applies. That's not the other way around. That isn't the Constitution the evidence your code applies? And that's, well, yeah, you're right. Okay, so if that's backwards and not an answer, I still want so we know it's not a code. You just said it. What facts would prove your Constitution applies to me then, just because I'm physically in Arizona or New York? And they're stuck. And that's when they'll usually say, if they're honest, they'll say, well, it was an assumption. So they are literally assuming the Constitution applies to justify their reading of the statute. And then there's a couple of people that will say, but all they can do is look at the statute. No, that's not their claim. You cannot claim that the Constitution is the basis of your authority, that the Constitution gives you jurisdiction. And then when I ask you for evidence, say, all I can do is go to the statute. You don't get to do that you don't get to do that. Logic dictates if you're going to make claim A, you can't turn around and say, well, I can't discuss that. All I can do is go to B. No. Right. There's a certain logic that goes. It's like I said before. My cousin Vinny, when he talks about making a case, and you got to have a foundation, and you got to the bricks that's the walls. They want to completely wipe out the foundation and just talk about the friggin' roof. Well, all I have, you remember? Did you see the video that I did with Ian Freeman? And it was the New Hampshire Department of Motor Vehicle. It was an admin hearing. Do you remember? Now, for those who didn't, go watch this. Now, he insisted, I don't need fact. I don't need evidence. I have a statute. And I said, well, objection. They don't have any evidence that applies. They admittedly have no evidence the Constitution applies. And if there's no evidence the Constitution applies, the statute is completely meaningless.
Right. And he went on to say that just because he's been doing that for many years, I believe after he said that, so this is what's going to go today in this courtroom. And then he said to you, if you say one more, I remember he went to count like he was a fucking kid. You say one more word, I'm going to count to 5 or some retarded shit. I wanted to choke him through the phone, because it did. I'm looking at this shit and Mark, I'm like, okay, here's a simple logic. It's okay. If I'm asking you a question, like if you ask me, Mr. Mark, okay, you're charged with, is your name Mr. Mark? Yes. Okay, Your Honor. Is your name Your Honor? Yes. What the fuck is wrong with
Whoa, there you go.
Simple question. Does the laws and Constitution apply to me because I'm physically in your bedroom with your wife? If for the sake of the matter, what the hell does that have what does that have to do with my physical location and your location and your laws applying to me? Could you show me something within the fact? I can tell you shit don't stink, but shit all over your sofa and sit there and eat and see if you can take the heat and smell it at the same damn time.
Man, Angelo, I understand I get it.
So my agitation comes from because you're helping me deal with logic so much to where I bring this shit in my relationship now. My lady say something that don't make no sense to me. I get up like I've been this bullshit. Everything you just said is bullshit.
Well, I don't want to get look. Logic is not to be used to bludgeon people over the head. There's still a finesse, and you got to treat her and others the way you want to be treated. So,
right.
But I actually have a long line of calls. I've got to get to. I got somebody on Skype. I've got to get. I got to make it. I got to make this quick. Maybe one more issue we can discuss. But so you filed a motion to dismiss. She's not responding. End of Brady request. And so she's not giving you certain aspects of it. I would say that if it's been enough time, and maybe a call to her can maybe get some statements that you can use. But I would be moving to file the motion in limine and a motion to dismiss for prosecutorial misconduct.
Well, I have the prosecutorial misconduct that I've gotten already from you. I have to get the motion of limine. But she did respond to the motion, my motion. and she did it on the same day that I had court. She had 30 days to do it, but she waited until the day of court to, actually give me her response.
Well, yeah, if it's traffic, DUI, I don't think that but New York is different, and so they're very bad when it comes to discovery. It's not nearly as open a process and complete a process as you'll get, let's say, in Arizona. So I'm going to have to, it's just like a speedy trial in New York is not 180 days; it's 2 years. So, and there's Brady material that is due before the day of trial, but not necessarily the other basic discovery information and evidence that's supposed to give you. So that even in a DUI in New York, it still may be no pretrial discovery other than the day of the trial. So I would have to look into know for sure, but I'm going to err on that side that she probably is complying with the rules for basic discovery, but she's not complying with the Brady material obligation.
Okay, so right now, only thing I'm waiting for is the judge to answer both of our motions.
Say that again.
The judge has to answer both of the motions that were submitted, hers and then mine. Yeah. So in the meantime, just wait on the judge then?
It's unfortunate, but that's you can't, there is no mechanism to get the judge to make a ruling. So we just have to wait for them to make a ruling. The only thing you could do to speed it up is to get your motion calendared for a hearing. That might, he might actually make a decision that day after an actual, or a pretended hearing.
Okay, so because like I said, I already emailed you. You have responded back to me, so I don't want to hold up the time for other people because there's much more other people out you can help also. I will keep informed with you, and you also for your time. I know it's valuable, so I definitely want to send you some love and stuff. So I'm gonna email you, and we go from there.
All right, sounds good.
Tell me what I need to send and whatever I need to do, and the papers you have, you can look over, and we can go from there.
Sounds good. Appreciate the call, Angelo.
I appreciate you also, Mark, and also listeners too, man. It's a blessing to us. Take heed to it, y'all.
Thank you. We got a Skype caller, so let's see what we've got here. I have to mute that out, so we're going to go to JC. No, we don't want to do that. I want to just call JC. Hopefully they've got... Hopefully JC is ready. We'll see what we've got here. Okay, well, there'll be record that I tried. So we'll go to a regular caller. He's been on the show. We've got Rock in Washington. Rock, welcome back to the show. Rock, you've been very patient. So, oh man, I end the call with Angelo to get all these other callers. And okay, so we got Rock. We'll have to mute Rock back up. And I will. So, in a very common, this is something that, again, we get no new arguments. No new arguments ever. If the Constitution doesn't apply, you don't get due process. You see, here's the thing. Let's talk about logic and talk about evidence and rational. Okay. The Constitution presumptively applies to the judge because the judge is taking an oath to provide due process regardless of who the hell is in the courtroom. So I think it's just another bad argument, which is what you can expect from this particular critic. And I'm only mentioning it now because we're trying to square away the call. So as far as I know, in the Constitution, it requires all judges and requires all government agents, presumptively, it is a criminal organization. That's why I'm saying presumptively, that the due process requirement applies to them. They are obligated to provide due process. The judge is required to be fair and consistent with traditional notions of fair play and substantial justice, regardless of the litigant and the person who is forced into the court. What is this? The thing is, if the Constitution doesn't apply and due process doesn't apply, they can't do anything to you. They can't act because they would be acting without jurisdiction. It would be a purely criminal act, overtly. Okay, so okay, we'll see if we can get JC. But that I think settles that the due process. The judge takes an oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution, and that presumptively obligates them to provide due process and be fair, regardless of the litigant that is before them. So I'm not a lawyer. And maybe they teach you something different in law school. It's some secret thing. Oh, yeah, if you were a lawyer. No, come on. The judge is obligated to provide due process regardless of the litigant in front of them. So we're going to try JH again. I got to mute that up. I think Skype has just one of the worst ringtones. All right, we got JC.
Yes, Mark, how are you?
I'm doing well. Where are you calling from, JC?
I'm actually in Texas, the Texas area.
JC, well, wish we had better audio, but I'm glad we got you on. What can I do for you today?
Okay, so I have a situation out of California, right? I've been fighting it for 2 years. I've already been extradited there once.
Jeez.
I already beat a preliminary hearing. Yeah, they actually took me on Alaska Airlines, fed me really well and all that, treated me like a Chapo kind of style. So, pretty good experience. So anyways, just to cut it short. So I have it. So they refile, right? We beat it on preliminary hearing and the DA refile, right? But when they refile, I went to court, they had appointed an attorney, but I didn't know it was a different case because when I got rebooked again, I got rebooked on the same case I had already beat, and I have the discharge papers off of it. I bailed out on that same case, and I have the same contract, the indemnity contract, and all that stuff, right? So, anyways, to cut it short, is it too late to file the demurrer and what is it and the discovery motion?
Oh, well, it's not a motion.
Right now I have a bench warrant.
Well, it's not a motion. It's a discovery request because you're not asking the court to do anything. It's just a request to the prosecutor. So just to be precise on the language, the demur is appropriate if they haven't forced you into an arraignment yet. So have they forced you into an arraignment?
Yes, they have.
Okay, so I would do the same thing. I would just delete where it says demur, and I would put motion to dismiss. And I would argue the same grounds.
Basically, we're going to dismiss based on those grounds. Just challenge the whole thing.
Well, we're challenging the prosecution's claim. They believe that their laws apply just because you're physically in California. That includes their constitution. How do we know this? They tell us. It's in the paperwork.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So
I totally agree with you. Yeah, no, I totally agree with the concept then.
Right. Well, just keep in mind, though, JC, I'm not just speaking to you. I want to address, the people who may be listening. So,
okay.
So, and people who may be new and maybe not know that they may be hearing that that's not what they're actually doing, but that's actually what they are doing. And here, and look, and for everyone that might be in this situation, if you want to know for sure, it doesn't matter what I say, and it really doesn't matter what someone says on YouTube. Completely irrelevant. If you want to know for sure, go to the source. If you ask them, they will tell you. If you ask the judge, is the jurisdiction of this court based on my being present in California and that meaning that, that the Constitution applies because I'm physically in California, is that the basis of your jurisdiction over me? He will tell you, yes. Yes. Now, it's not going to get we could sit here and say, but someone on the internet disagrees with you. And he's going to say, Abba Fungul, I don't care what someone on the internet says. What matters, everybody, is the claim that's actually being used against you. Nothing else is relevant to attack at that point. So I would just style it as, I would rename the demur and change the first part of it accordingly. So it's just a motion to dismiss, and I'd be attacking it on the exact same grounds. I would be attacking the complaint on the same grounds.
Sorry, Mark. But I have a little problem and I have a little setback. They keep forcing me this public pretender.
Oh,
I've gone through 3 of them. I already fired all of them, and I sent letters firing them all. I went through a hearing and all that. I actually filed a motion to dismiss for vindictiveness and selective enforcement. And so they try to force me to accept the public pretender, and I said no. So that what they did is they just issued a bench warrant. This is the second bench warrant they've issued on.
They issued a bench. Wait. They issued a bench warrant for you because you wouldn't accept a public defender. There's
Correct.
Something else going on.
So I went to the hearing in January, right? And I said no, I'm not accepting the public defender. I'm actually challenging the jurisdiction of this court several times, right? And then they try to force me to fill out the Ferreira, the Ferreira motion. I said, yeah, I'm not gonna do this consensual. So I put there that it was non-consensual and all that. And then so she's like, well, I can't really take this application then if you're not, unless you erased everything you put there. I was like, no, that's basically a fact. I'm being forced to sign this, against my will. So that's what I'm putting there. So, and then she's like, yeah, so I'm not accepting. So you are ordered to appear. And I said, well, I'm not coming back, man. I'm just letting you know.
Oh,
I 30 days.
There you go. You gave them what they needed to justify their little warrant. And
okay, but hold up. So she's like, you're ordered back to appear. I was like, well, they also have to respond. Well, they have to respond to this motion. I said, I already filed several notices, of vindictiveness, and then they haven't replied. So, I filed a motion here today. Like, well, I'm gonna allow you to make record today only for this purpose, but I am not relieving the public defender. All right, you're not getting the public defender relieved. And I was like, well, I object because now it's an abuse of discretion from this court. And then she's like, again, I'm done. I'm out of here. You're ordered back to appear. So, and then she's like, and then she ordered the prosecution to reply to the motion to dismiss, right? So they replied, but they never served me with a reply. They served the public pretender with a reply. See? So that don't make no sense. If I'm the one filing, why will they serve the public defender?
Because the public, come on. Now, I see how unfair all this is, but it's easy there because the public defender is the one that's representing you, and that's the one they're going to be communicating with you, through. So, somebody, that's a legally authoritative, basis for, it's because he is the attorney of record, and that's who they're going to communicate with. And unfortunately, I guess this is what you were getting at before. As long as there's a public defender, you're not in California. You can't. You're at his mercy, literally. You can't object and make arguments on your own. I'm not a lawyer. But I'm sure. It'll come up that I'm giving you some. But if you're in California, the reason why you needed to sign the Ferreira document was so that they wouldn't appoint a lawyer for you, and you couldn't get a lawyer for yourself. You'd be defending yourself, and California doesn't allow what they call hybrid representation. Okay. I didn't learn that in law school. I just read that by reading Ferreira versus whatever it was. But, and I'm sorry to be making those stupid comments. But under Ferreira in California, they don't allow, like in Arizona, for example, or even the federal court in California, let's say if you're in San Diego, the United States federal court, you can defend yourself with assistance of counsel, just like it says in their sacred writ. But you can't do that in the California state courts. You cannot defend yourself with assistance of counsel. All you can have is representation. They don't allow what they call hybrid representation, which is written right into their sacred writ. So you are screwed.
No, but she accepted the filings that I had filed.
Wait, she accepted, but that doesn't. Well, the fact that the clerk accepted it doesn't mean that the judge has any legally authoritative basis to rule on it. The judge does not have to rule on anything you present because
the judge accepted it during the hearing. She accepted the letters, Mark, and she accepted all the paperwork, and she said she was making record of that.
She's making a record. Is she she hasn't ruled on it? See, there's no. legally authoritative justification for them to rule on it because you were represented by counsel. So I don't know.
Okay.
I can't explain exactly why they're accepting it from you in the first place. I had a judge, Marc.
So let me rephrase this a little bit, because I see what you're saying on the Ferreira decision, right? And I pointed that out. You know, the Ferreira decision, and I have the whole case, the whole court case. I basically know by memory. But anyway, so it's plain and simple what they decided. It says that no state, shall hail any defendant into their courts and therefore force a lawyer upon them when he chooses not to have one at all. And that's what I said. I don't need to fill out no paperwork. It's basically just enough. What they want me to do is also accept the terms and conditions of that paperwork. You see what I'm saying? Basically limiting my ability to defend myself. There was so many terms and conditions in that little Ferrer application. So for those of you in California that have that have ever been presented with a Ferrer motion, that's basically what it states, that there's a lot of things you're giving up that later on you can bring up on appeal. So that's the only caveat to that, to that particular part of the Ferrer crap. So that's the reason I didn't want to sign the paperwork.
Yeah, I get that, and I understand that they're deliberately putting in the restrictions. But according to their rules, if you don't sign that, they're going to go right ahead and assign you a lawyer, and that sucks. When you're in California, yeah, the deck is, and in California they fight. California, from what I understand, when we talk about some places being worse than others, California for discovery is one of the worst, and they will fight you so hard on Brady material. Arizona has an open file type of thing. It's up to you to come in and take copies of what you want, but that is the complete opposite in California. Their police unions they have really lobbied well. In fact, it's so bad in California, I want to be fair, unlike some, in that even prosecutors, it's just as difficult, well, maybe it's almost as difficult for prosecutors to get Brady material, or get information about bad cops as it is for us. The prosecution has to go through the same process you and I have to get information about a bad cop in a court proceeding. It's insane. So if you got a cop that has lied for 5 years, lie after lie after lie after lie, and you can't get into his file without having a hearing in front of the judge, and the prosecution has to do the same thing. So California for certain things is absolutely horrendous, and when it comes to discovery, bad. Arizona for discovery, it's better. It's not perfect, but it's better.
All right. Now I'm going to point out something else really quick. So I told you I beat preliminary hearing on a specific case, right?
Yeah.
And so she said, I'm going to hold the defendant to allow the prosecution to allow him plenty of time, to refile if they wish to do so. Now, if they have a short period of time to do so, but I'm holding them either way. So I stayed in the can, but I bailed out that night after I got booked, because I found out my bail was reduced from, 100,000 to 10,000. So I was like, okay, I'll get myself out of here. And next, so by statute, now this is their own law. Okay, this is not me saying that, oh, the law applies and all that crap. I'm saying that their own law, by statute, it says that, upon filing, termination of a preliminary hearing, if they wish to reinstate the same charges on the same case, they have 15 days to file a writ with the clerk, right? And a mandamus, to reinstate, something like that, to reinstate the case and to present enough evidence and fact as to why the decision was incorrect in dismissing the case. Now, there's a lot of things that are happening here, like point out the California corruption. For those of you, if you ever get caught over there, I don't know, get the hell out of California. That's the best advice I can give you. So that same case is still open. She did not even enter an order of disposition. It's been a year since I got out of the can. Actually, it's been a year. Last week. So then she so the case still open, like if the case still pending, right? Because they booked me in that case. They basically re-added 3 extra charges to that case, which is the same charges. And I bailed out on that, bonded out on that same case. Now, when I go to court, it's a whole different case, but they didn't tell me about it. I find out a month later that it's a different case. The what is it? The lawyer or the public pretenders, they didn't tell me that it was a whole different case. They told me it's the same case, the same situation. Yeah, so basically they misinformed me because then by statute, if they file a new case and you have not been booked on the same case, they have to do 2 things. They have to issue a KPS warrant right there and then, right? This is California Penal Code. Or the prosecutor can choose to file a motion and say instead of a KPS or warrant to issue for your arrest, and to have it served to you by a sheriff wherever you reside, then you can get a summons served to you, giving you instructions on how to go through the booking process, so that way you can attend your arraignment. So there's a lot of procedure right there that had been violated, as also with the bond that's been placed on the wrong case and all that, which is also big fraud because they can't do that. I also have a lot of books that talk about surety bonds, indemnity bonds, and all kinds of bonds, right? And so by contract, they really can't do that without the consent of the principal, which is the defendant, right? So I don't want to get too much into that legalese jargon, but that's just the point I'm trying to make. So in that particular scenario, the case is without merit, right? No lawyer wants to pick up the case. Nobody wanted to defend me. I offer a lawyer $50,000. That's the most I offer. They're felony charges, but they're not violent charges. None of that. It's just possession of a goddamn firearm, right?
Well, what I was wanted to point out there, and we got to wrap this up here in a few moments because I got some other calls I'm going to try to get it. Wow, we've been going for a while. There was a cop recently that was actually arrested for killing somebody. And they were held on. I think they were released on I reported it a couple of weeks ago. Within the last couple of weeks, they were let out at on a $25,000 bond. Like they killed somebody. I mean, it's remarkable that they're being held at all. But and I mentioned there that 25,000. My gosh, for killing somebody, people get far more for nonviolent offenses. So. All right. So just before we, so what can I? So where? So where are you in this right now? I mean, there's not really too much I can offer you when you have a lawyer involved because they're not going to make the arguments you want. I mean, they're certainly. I mean, even if the judge accepts your paperwork, they're not going to. I don't think they're going to rule on it.
Okay, I think she wants to make a final ruling because I did send one final demand to vacate with an affidavit of facts stating basically point after point after point, the history of the record and how it's basically out of procedure, basically pointing out prosecutorial misconduct. So I would have to, so that way we can cut the call short. I would have to send you basically the record and then you review it and you let me know if we can come up with something. And that's up to you if you got time, if you want to do it. I don't mind. And all that. I mean, I think this is also a very good case that everybody can learn from.
It might be, but we'll have. Yeah, we can discuss that off air.
All right. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I appreciate. Right, I appreciate the call, and we'll follow up on another show.
All right, I appreciate you, Mark.
All right, have a good one. Yeah, California. That's rough, man. You get in California, and they want to. It's a fairly serious charge. Even nonviolent, you have 2 choices. You either go at it all by yourself with no assistance at all. I mean, you are on your own, or you have a lawyer do it, and you can't make any arguments. Now, for some, that might be the case where it's probably it's best. But for most of what we deal with over here on the No State Project, that's just not the case. Okay, we're gonna see if we can get one more call in. We'll try Rock in Washington. We got you there, buddy? Someone let them know on the chat that we're ready to go. No? Damn it. I'm assuming he was on there. All right, well, All right. Well, I'm going to have to end the show. We'll have to get Rock. I won't be live on Wednesday, but we'll have to get Rock next Saturday. So apologize for that. The very interesting thing came up, and I love how you can make a point and use legally authoritative citations. Okay. And instead of addressing the actual argument, well, it's not true that you saying so doesn't make it so. I'm the first one to admit that something is not true just because someone says it. But see, the difference is I apply that to judges too. It's not true just because a judge says it. But most of the time, at least in appellate decisions, the judge making the decision has, at least at the appellate level, there is sometimes an exhaustive analysis to support that decision. So it's not X is not Y because the judge says so. It's his analysis is leading to that. And so when I said earlier to address this argument that if the Constitution applies, you don't have due process, that the judge doesn't have to provide due process. You look right in the Constitution. Was it Article 6 where they take